All right. Well, thank you all for joining me here. Jose J. Garcia with Garcia Home University. We got the Q&A part manager, one of the still very hard task to do as an investor, very scary apparently, and I can relate. Years ago when I first got started, it's all that. What do I say? What do I ask? What do I tell them? Talk to them. Easier said than done, I suppose. So with me this evening, I got Crystal, who is a very experienced part manager. She's going to be able to answer a lot of questions here for y'all. I hope y'all got questions ready for that. Like I said, if you have a question, comment, just drop it on the comments, raise your hand, or you can just speak up throughout. We'll try to, let's see, still letting people in. But just speak up. And more towards the end, I'm also going to open the floor. So, I got a list of questions here I ask myself, and then throughout, anything I miss, odds are I'm probably going to ask a lot of the questions that you're interested in knowing the answers to as well. So just wait towards the end. And okay. All right. Well, Crystal, thank you for coming on here with us. For those of you that have been to my shadows, especially the last two, I think Crystal has been the one that's been playing the role as a manager. So she's answered a lot of questions there for us. But for those new on here, she'll be able to do the same for y'all. So Crystal, good evening.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Nice and clear. Yes, ma'am. So Crystal, you add a lot to, I mean, you are the primary. When you think of investing, you're the person who, especially when you're starting out as a mobile home investor, you're not thinking of a park owner, a direct seller. You're thinking the park manager, because you're going to have to deal with a park manager sooner or later. That's just the way that it works. And that's going to relate to some of the questions I have for you. But for those that don't know you on here, tell us a little bit about you, your experience in some of these parks. You have tons of them. Tell us about you.
Well, I am a 14-year Army veteran. I got into property management 2020, early 2020. I started the job and then we went straight into the pandemic. So it was a lot of adjustment. But I've had a lot of experience just in this 1 year, especially with investor properties. So I am here to answer any questions that you may have.
Absolutely. Well said, and as always, thank you for your service. So, one of the reasons that I continue to work with Crystal and a lot of part managers can, no deal is the same to investor. Everything is different everywhere you go. But one thing for sure is Crystal doesn't take any crap. And we've worked together for a while. I started as an investor and she will give it to you straight, which I like that way. But I think a lot of times many investors are coming into this niche, this market, and they're hit by this reality, and I tell them, don't be scared of that. Or, I'd rather somebody tell it to me straight than trying to feed me a story of some sort. And especially when you're trying to get into this market,
Right.
we'll run into a lot of part managers that tell you what you want to hear. Many times they realize, well, I have X amount of mobile homes sitting, and if I can get them out there, maximize the park, they look better in a sense, but they're not really telling you the full story. A lot of things could be changed and that they're not really going to tell you till after the fact. So Crystal definitely won't do that and won't take my crap. So let's get started. She knows what I'm talking about. All right. And my questions are going to be all over the place. I mean, I'm just trying to think of questions that I would ask. For those of you that are new on here, you can ask a lot of these questions yourself as you're listening in, because if you are new, there may be questions that you're struggling with now. So again, when I open the floor, definitely let me know. But the first one that I have for you is, what are main things mobile home park managers look for when running a background? So when we think of an end buyer, maybe a tenant, it depends on the exit strategy that investor does. But okay, I'll send them to you, Crystal. It's time for you to run a background on them. What is the biggest thing you're checking on this individual that will be living in the park?
We're looking for felonies. Felonies is our number one. But here recently, we're looking for your rental background. Why? Because of this new CDC, the moratorium. We have to ask the question, do you have the moratorium signed? Because a lot of people were evicted from their properties, or they signed a CDC and so they left their last rental place with owing a balance. And we don't necessarily want to get in the business of dealing with people who already have a CDC sign, because basically they're just looking for another place to get into to not pay the rent.
Yeah, I would definitely say, I lost a couple RTOs during that mix, more so in Florida. And it was that whole nonsense of, and you saw that a lot. They would back up X amount
Yeah.
because they were getting so many breaks. And when they did finally have to go,
Right.
it's they just up and leave. So we saw a lot of that. So that's interesting though. So felonies is still number one, and it has to be, especially these community parks that are, family oriented, where, you can't have just anybody coming in. So, and don't try to go around your park manager. That's not going to work in the long term. One thing, especially on investors, and I teach my students is, we abide by all rules and regulations like everybody else, and you have to. You're trying to build a long-term relationship. Always think that long term. If this was a one deal, get in, get out, you're done. I still don't suggest that, but okay. But if you're going to keep on doing business here, and you're carrying that, it's not going to work out long term anyway. But okay, many mobile home
Mhm.
parks make investors do also the backgrounds. I haven't rented the many. Now, when I first got started, yes, but now more so, I thank gosh that built the credibility. I have a portfolio, if you will. So if anything, call another park manager, another park owner, they kind of back me up. So it's very easy for me to get into parks now. But for those that are getting started, this is not always the case. They all have to do backgrounds many times. Are there any exceptions that, as a part manager, you would give to an investor, being that he or she is an investor?
If it's someone that I've dealt with before, then of course, if they happen to get another property under us, no, we won't require them to run their background again. But if they're a new investor, they have to run a background through us, even if they will be just doing the investment and then selling the home. We still want them to do a background because things change. They might end up flipping the home and keeping the home and then getting a tenant in the home. And at the end of the day, they're the owner. So we have to have a background for them.
Now, one thing that I try to teach my students is don't keep getting background after background done. That's obviously going to affect your credit just by being ran that way. Um, could they use one background from a mobile home park at another one? Let's say one just got approved this week, and then next week they apply into another one. Is that something that you would allow?
Yes.
Okay.
And even if I have an investor and we have a good working relationship and they're saying, hey, I'm getting a property somewhere else, would you mind sending over my background check? I personally would go ahead and give them their background check, or not give it to them, but send it to whoever needed it. That way they wouldn't have to pay for another one, just to look out.
And that's huge for those of you listening in, because yes, if you're getting starting at the mobile home investing, especially, it's one thing if you come in and do a background and you start investing in a park, okay, kind of goes hand in hand. But if you apply for a park and for whatever reason, you don't get approved or something, you keep doing this in park after park after park, your credit score is getting little hits. So, this call is not about credit tonight. I do have a call coming up on this. I'll advertise at the end, but just keep that in mind. So for Crystal to say she would actually do that and send over, that's huge. And that may be a relationship that you have to build with that park manager to cover you for the next one and the next one. And that's why you keep building that. Um, so I've heard from a few solo investors, not so many of my students, that they have issues with the park managers. They can't get a hold of them. They're not answering their phone. They send texts, leave voicemails, etc. One of the times that, of course, hurts them the most is when they're trying to get a tenant, a end buyer approved, and they can't get a hold of the manager. Uh, what do you say to something like that for them to be able to reach to? I mean, something had to transpire. I always say there's two sides of the story here. So, but what would you say to
Right.
something like that?
9 times out of 10, we're busy. Uh, the best way to reach them, more so than a phone call, is probably shoot a text. Say, hey, I'm an investor. I'm trying to reach you in regards to such and such. Here's my email. Can you reach out to me and let me know what is needed? Or shoot a text, because a lot of the times, like me personally, I have 12 properties. So I'm on the road a lot. I don't have time to text, and reply to emails. I'm driving 4 or 5 hours a day. So I can definitely catch up with those when I'm at my desk, or when I get home in the evening. I'll reply and say, hey, what do you need? But just give us time. If it goes 2 weeks or days and you haven't heard from anybody, see if there's someone else that you can contact.
Okay. That's a good answer on that. Absolutely. And speaking of calling, let me go ahead and ask this because we're all busy. For those of you listening, we're all busy. So just remember that. And there's park managers that maybe many times don't manage just the park that you see them at. A lot of times, especially if that office is closed maybe throughout the week, certain days, this probably means that they're managing other parks. Just because they're not at the office doesn't mean they're handling all these residents at one time. So just be mindful of that these are very busy people. If they are dodging you for sure, and you know that, then you probably had a little to do with that. I don't know. It may be something for you to rebuild the report there, just something to keep in mind. But what days of the month or what times throughout the days would you say is not ideal for investors to just be blowing up your phone?
Definitely on Mondays. 9 times out of 10, we have lots of emails from the weekend. We have meetings that we have to go to. Probably the best time to probably catch us is mid-afternoon or early mornings, midweek, but definitely not a Monday, not a Friday.
And you want to get on the bad side, call during lunchtime every day. That won't work either. So yes, I hear things. So too often I get that same Q&A. The whole is, what do I say to them? And that's the biggest question is, what do I say to a park manager? What do I ask them? How can I get them to work with me? The whole all relate is basically they want me to write them a blueprint. And like I tell, investors and students is, you have to fill out every individual because you may call and it may not be the right time. If you call and you hear a very aggravated manager, that may not be the time for you to really present yourself. Let me give you a call when you're a little less busy later, if you don't mind. I would rather pull back than burn that that opportunity there. But what is something that they could say to a park manager on their first call?
Hi, my name is such and such. I'm an investor. Do you have time to talk? If not, I can leave you my info so you can give me a call back.
Nice, short, simple, and right to the point. There you go.
Right.
And this call is being recorded, like I said, so we're replaced. I know some people out there probably trying to write that. So I was the same way. It is that panicky, like what, so understandable. One question that I had, and this is something I made a coaching video earlier on, was lot rents. Lot rents going up. Every year we see a little pickup of. Now we do have parks that, for whatever reason, they have not gotten up in the past 3 years. I like it, obviously, but this will mostly affect investors doing RTOs because if numbers change, then the contracts agreements that they have in place have to change. Now there's an up to that. How often do you typically see lot rents increasing?
Since I've been in the field once a year.
Once a year?
Once a year, and I've had some properties that I've taken on that either haven't raised their lot rent in 4 or 5 years, and now I'm taking property management and I'm dealing with the owner and I'm saying, hey, you're way under market. We need to get you there. So then we might have to do 2 a year to get them to market value. But I try to do it as smooth as I can. Like I have a property now that they're about $100 under market value. And so we're trying to ease them up.
Okay. Do you usually get kickback from tenants? I mean, and that's common. What's the most you've seen when it comes to them changing it? Because that's the thing. And that's one of the parts where I see where I coach park owners is that it's okay. They let it go, and 2-3 years later they're well on the market, and then they try to catch it up all at one time, which doesn't work that way. People live there. People live paycheck to paycheck, like we know. What's the highest number you've seen?
We got shot up. It was 100.
From one day to the next, 100.
We gave them a 90-day notice.
Okay. So, okay. Still a decent jump. I'm sure some tenants probably had to go, not sure. But so for those of you, again, listening in, I mean, if you are doing RTOs and even rentals, I mean, something to keep in mind because you make the profits in between. From the RTO, from the rentals and the lot rents, everything goes hand in hand. So anything that changes like that affects not just the resident and buyer, but also yourself. Every park has different rules, regulations. I mean, for the most part, when you read them, park after park, they all kind of say the same thing. But every now and then you'll see something different. what is the number one or one of the most rules you see broken by investors?
Having tenants who live in the home that we have no idea who they are.
They pre-approved them for you.
Pre-approved.
All right. I was
That is
expecting.
the biggest thing.
Yeah, that, or I've seen 5 families living in one home. You see that also.
That too.
But back to the same thing. Is obviously if they came to you and said, okay, I'm going to approve 2 more for lot 2C or whatever, you would know that, well, wait a minute, you have already 3 people living, so it's that going around the corner, and again, it catches up. So back to the lot rent real quick. I wanted to add, as investors, that's one thing that you want to ask, as we're sitting here talking about, things that you would say to a park manager, always ask, what is the current lot rent? What does it include? Some include trash, water. I mean, it just depends, but you have to be able to ask that, and always ask, when is the last time the lot rent has gone up? When is the next time that the lot rent is going to go up? So these are things you have to know. So ask them as well. But never go behind a park manager, like I'm mentioning. A park manager is going to make you or break you. That's just the way that it works. They're in charge. Okay. Uh, I've always found best to be transparent, be honest, go through them, because they're going to help you out in the end. I mean, Crystal has been an asset to me from every which way. Just she's a nice person anyway. So, but that wouldn't be the case if you're trying to put tenants inside of a mobile home that she's not aware of, because she will find out sooner or later. Crystal, add to that your thoughts.
My only issue with that is because the investors don't see it from my point of view. I send out text blasts to the tenants who live there. So if I don't know, and it's important that what I'm sending out to the tenants who live there, and your tenants are on my system, they're missing all of these blasts of text messages. The water may be getting cut off. It's certain stuff like that that the tenants who actually live in the homes need to know. And when it comes to a 2-bedroom trailer and it's 8 people living there, 2 kids, it's just not enough room. And so that could be a fire hazard as well.
Yeah, no, a lot goes in.
And it's not enough parking.
Yeah, then there's that exterior of, you can't lie about how many people are living in a home when you have 7 cars in your parking lot, and it is what it is. But okay, a couple questions coming in on chat. I will get to those here shortly. Here's one of the things that I'm going to go ahead and toss out there. When you're an investor, part of, and this is part of my pitch that I use is, I want to make it as easy as possible for both the park owner and park manager when I come into a park and invest. Why do they allow me to invest? Is because I do what I say I'm going to do, and I make sure that things get done right and get done on time. One thing that you don't want to do is have an investor have a tenant or a resident who's trouble, who's loud, who's breaking the rules. And if you're not dealing with them, guess who has to deal with your buyer? Because that's the way they're going to put it, is your buyer in that home. You sold it, you rent it, doesn't matter. That's your buyer. And you're never around or don't oversee this. That would mean that Crystal, in a sense, she has to go deal with them. So sooner or later, that's going to become old, and that could keep you from getting additional deals. Or what I'm getting at is whether you're doing an RTO finance for 3-5 years, it doesn't matter, or it's a rental for that term, for that length of time that you have that property. You take care of that tenant. You make sure that lot rent is paid. You make sure that Crystal never hears from them. Because if she does, again, it will come back. And after a while, it's just a circle that you don't want happening. So wanted to add that to that, Crystal. Crystal, you work with a bit of investors. Go ahead.
I would rather not deal with, if you are an RTO investor, you are the owner of that home, regardless of whatever contract that you have with them. My contract is with you as the owner. So to have any kind of contact with your tenant, or your tenant calling me, or the rent not being paid, that is a no-go. If your tenant does not pay you, that has absolutely nothing to do with you paying me. You're responsible for the rent. So be mindful when you get tenants saying that they're on an RTO and they're responsible. No, my contract will be with you as the owner. You have a separate contract with them.
There you have it. Okay. Now you work with a bit of investors now. I know you do, and you work with some of my students. Have you ever had to actually kick out an investor? And if so, why?
Yes, for non-payment.
Refusing to pay the lot
And
rent.
he didn't pay the lot rent. Was dodging my calls, and I gave him at least 90 days to pay and refused.
Oh, wow.
So now he has an eviction.
Now he has an eviction on his report, on his personal report. So y'all listening in again, these things are huge because, again, you do a background, you come into this park, you're technically the resident. You're in their system, you're considered that tenant. Now, you know, what you create out of that, whether it's an investment or you are, you know, if that property defaults, that lot rent doesn't get paid, that comes back to you. So somebody has to get paid that lot rent, or it'll hurt you. It'll hurt your credit in the end. And I mean, you're going to have a park eviction on your credit. That doesn't sound very good in any way. Why do you think more people don't get into mobile home investing, from your knowledge?
Because they really don't know how good of an investment it is, and they don't know how to find people to do the work.
Yep, that would definitely do it. Addition to, I mean, hesitation. We can get at the whole list of that, but the mobile home market has definitely grown. 7 years ago when I got started, I mean, it was being done, but it was very low key. I say that over and over. Now it's very loud, and it is getting loud. And of course, me myself coaching and teaching people how to do it, I contribute to it. But now that it has grown as much as it is, I mean, you also have new issues, new concerns. How many on average mobile homes do you allow one investor to invest in one park?
It depends on the investor. If I know the investor is good at what he does, you know, it depends on how many I have at the park. Usually I do about, depending on the park, if I have 5 vacants and I know that he can take 5 vacants, then I'll give him the 5 vacants. If I go to a park and I happen to have 20 vacants and I know that he can make it happen, I'll give him the 20. But if it's somebody who's new that I don't know, they'll get 1. I'll see how they do. And if I have others, then we'll talk after that.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to prove yourself. For you listening in, I mean, you coming into a park, you're new to mobile home investing, you've never rehabbed a property, real estate, you know, none of the above. You can understand from Crystal's point, and for many park managers, they don't know. You have to build yourself and be credible. So, you know, that's not a downfall. That's a plus. Go ahead and do what you say you're going to do. Take that one property and excel at it, and I'm sure more will come. So, good answer on that. Any advice to a couple more questions here from me, and then I know Chad has a couple here. I haven't checked Instagram at all, but advice to any investor getting in and getting started. What would you say to somebody?
Repeat that question again.
Somebody new, a new investor coming in. Advice that you can give them before they get started.
Definitely find someone who's going to do your contracting. Have someone in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's huge. I mean, let's see, a couple more people here. So last question from me, and then I'm gonna jump on to, like I said, the chat here box and then the Instagram. It has been said over and over that Jay Garcia is the number 1 mobile home coach. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think you're very good at what you do. You're very helpful to the people that you coach. Always there when they need you for questions and guidance. So definitely one of my best investors.
Love to hear that. Thank you. So, you know, I had to add that in there. All right. So we got Crystal for a few more minutes. So, we got to be mindful of everybody's time. She joined us here on her Sunday, her day off. So we can't thank her enough for that. But let me go ahead and get these check questions for you. So what are some things that investors do to make your job harder or easier?
The hardest thing is putting the people in there and I don't know who's there. The easiest thing is making sure they get good tenants, contacting me if they have any questions or concerns, because if I don't know, I can't help. And I'm a very helpful person. So if you come to me with an issue, I will definitely try to find an answer.
Okay. Next question. I understand the background check, but many people were affected by the pandemic. Once the moratorium lifts, many stick-built homes will be foreclosed on those people. Credit destroyed, of course. So my question is, how important will credit check be if we're all too strict or no one will qualify?
I personally, I'm not really caring about the credit score. I'm looking for evictions. I'm looking for people who are being honest about evictions on their record. I have a lot of people who lie and say, oh, I have, no criminal background, no evictions, and that's a red flag. As soon as I've asked you, do you have any evictions? Do you have any felonies? And you say no, and then your credit report comes back and I can see everything, that's an immediate no.
That's much like a seller. When we're asking a direct seller, are you up to date on lot rent, on taxes? Oh, yes, I pay early. And then we go check and they're on the verge of being evicted. It's like, I'm going to check. So,
Right.
definitely, Crystal just said it definitely helps out if you're honest. If you do have an eviction, just let her know at least beforehand and then see what
Right.
they can do for you.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me see. I think I had one more question, and then now let's see. Instagram, I can't see your messages. Just raise your hand if you do have any. We got Crystal for like 2 more minutes. So who is responsible? Read it. Go ahead.
It says, oh Lord, hold on, back to the chat. Who is responsible for advertising background checks for the property? The owner is, because that we ask for background checks, so you can't just have a tenant in there and not have a background check. I will send the owners the link to do it, or I'll send the actual paperwork to do it, and then you'll have that to give out to your tenant.
There you go. Good deal. Okay. I have a few announcements to make here in a minute. A couple things that will be changing on the coaching, and just a few things I want to discuss here on our upcoming call, which is going to be huge. Y'all are going to like it. But Crystal, we're going to be mindful of your time at this time. Thank you for joining us this evening. I do have to give you a call tomorrow on a few of the properties we have, so we'll talk then. But I'm sure everybody was happy to have you on here, and any other questions, I'm sure they'll send them in. So thank you for joining us.
All right. Thanks. Have a good night.
All right. A few announcements here. Definitely. We're going to start doing this a little bit more. I like coaching directly. And I do a lot of that as one-on-ones, kind of back pocket access. If you go to my website, you'll see that. But when it comes to these calls here, I think they're a bit more beneficial if we do kind of like what we did tonight. I have a couple investors that I want to bring them on the call. And I want them to talk about some of their troubles, some of their, as they're going along, what got easier, things they look for, coaching, etc. Because all these calls here are going to slowly but surely help you that much more, a little bit every time. And, bring your questions. I advertise this call first thing, I think either Wednesday morning or Thursday morning. So you're able to see what topic we're talking about. So try to come up with some questions at that time so that when Sunday comes around, you have them up and ready. I mean, this time is for y'all. No charge. It's for you. We love to give back, and this is one way to do it. So have them ready, and anything like Miss Crystal here this evening. She is not getting paid for her time. She just loves to give back as well. And you know how many questions she answered for me, and then a few on here as well. So that's what it's all about. But if you are looking for more direct coaching, you can visit my site. I'll be happy to help you then, more so one-on-one kind of thing. Next Sunday, this one is huge. I've been wanting to do this call for a while, and I want to go ahead and do it. I don't know if I'll be able to get my mentor on the call. That would be amazing. But it's going to be about how to buy mobile homes with credit cards. You know, if you look at the numbers, you understand the ROIs and you understand what it takes to get into mobile homes. Technically, it's zero money that you can come in as a bird dog, a wholesaler, etc. But if let's say I don't want to be either two, not yet. I want to come in and immediately I want to buy a mobile home. I want to either rent it out, flip it, etc. That being said, is I'm going to need some type of money. Okay. Now our investments, if you keep up with them, we don't exceed 5,000 very seldomly. So on average, I mean, one of the latest RTOs we did, we had, I think 3,200, 3,700. That's all in 3,700. Let's just use the big number. That meant that that's what we got for the mobile home, paying for the actual house quotations. That's paying for the labor, paying for the material, paying for the utilities, paying for the holding. A whole lot of things happening here, all for $3,700. Could you not put that on a credit card? Yes, you can. But how do you do it? How do you buy a mobile home if you got to pay cash? I'm going to see how in detail I can get into it, because I can teach you. If you want that one-on-one, I can definitely teach you. Maybe, Victor. That's funny you say that. Maybe. You can use, and I'm gonna just let me just throw a few things out there just to maybe get you intrigued a little bit more. You can use PayPal. You can use 2 different accounts. You can actually connect credit cards. There's so many ways to be able to use this. And all in all is all, you know, you're trying to buy mobile homes. I don't have time for a bank to give me a loan. I don't have somebody enough time for maybe a private money lender who is taking their precious time to give me the money. You don't need it. If you have credit cards and you have credit, you're able to buy all the above with a credit card. Now, if you can't get a credit card because your credit is shot, we will also get into how to build your credit back up. So we'll talk about that as well. But yes, one of my mentors, one of my students here said Trevor. Trevor is one of my first coaches that I ever had. So I'm going to see if we can bring him in. But if not, I will still do the call. Feel confident enough for it, so I can coach y'all on that. But again, it's all about giving back any way we can invest. It's all, you know, we're in this for the same thing. So let's win together. Shadow event, we're posting a little bit more on that. The next upcoming one is going to be June 19th, which is about 2 Saturdays from now, Saturday at 10 in the morning. That event is not one you want to miss if you're trying to get into real detail what to look for inside of a mobile home. You can put numbers together, you can break them down, but if you don't know what it's truly going to take to invest in a mobile home for material, labor, holding, etc., you don't know how much you can do the MAO, maximum allowed offer, until you get into a mobile home and you can start piecing it together. What about this wall? What about this floor, the ceiling, the roof, the painting? The list goes on. That is what we coach you, teach you at the event. We take you in and we have part managers just like Crystal. She will probably be at this next event as well. We have a contractor, handyman that will be there to answer all the questions you can come up with from anything you can think on. And then park owner didn't make it to the last event, but he may be there this event as well. The event will be held in Central Georgia. For those of you who want to join, let me know. Next, Let's Do Deals is this Tuesday coming up. That's every Tuesday. Quick little announcement on that, because we had to miss last Tuesday. I was not happy with that. I don't think since we started that call, I've missed one, but we did. And the reason behind it is we were out looking at parks, looking at mobile homes. The time got away from us. By the time I looked at the clock, it was after 7. I think I sent a reminder of cancellation or something after 7, which is terrible. But we're thinking about moving that call from Tuesday on to Wednesday, just to make sure, because we get so many deals that day many times that we don't get to put them on and run them till the next week. Time sensitive at that point. So we'll make sure we announce, you know, plenty of time in advance and that sort of thing for Wednesday calls. But I think that's ideal. Moving it from Tuesday to Wednesday. Send me a message. Send me a message what you think on that. You know, if you think that, you know a lot of people's schedule, you got to be mindful too. And we've been doing pretty good about meeting time. So this was the first one, but it immediately got us thinking. So I think that's all the announcements we have. Be sure to hit follow, subscribe on our YouTube. You know, we blast all these calls will be recorded moving forward each and every week also. So for those of you who want to see a replay of it, you can go and check it out on there. And we'll probably blast some of those as well. Yes, T Lane, go ahead.
Call my question. All right, I'm just curious. Do you deal with LLCs? Are we able to form a corporation ourselves and come in and buy properties from you? And once we do that, is that necessarily where your coaching comes out? Really just looking to flip, not really looking to do RTOs. Is that possible?
You mean to come in with an LLC and put the
Inspection.
properties in that name? Is that what you're asking?
Put the properties in that name, get them ready to sell, and turn them over to the next buyer.
Yeah, I mean, if I understand the question correctly, I would always suggest for any and everybody, never put any property in your personal name. Always have an LLC or a corporation and put those under those. So yeah, I work with most people who I do. They have an LLC of some sort that they use to put these properties, to flip them, rent them, doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah, that's because I was just curious when Crystal was talking about running credit charts for individuals. I'm like, well, we're not an individual. So that's what I was just curious about. So we're doing that, and then okay, sorry, go ahead.
You're fine, you're fine. Okay. I think that was the last announcement I had. Any questions y'all have for me at this time? Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. When he was talking about the LLC, is it okay to start out with the LLC right away, or should we get one or a couple of deals going before we get the LLC?
So that question being asked, I'm going to go ahead and tell you all that I'm not an attorney. I cannot give you legal advice. Any advice I give you is for educational purposes only. That being said, however, I would say that, if you've never done a deal before, I'm not going to say that you're not going to like mobile homes, because when you see those ROIs, you're going to love them. But start with one property, maybe forget about the LLC for the first time, see how it works out, see what you think about it. And if it's something that a journey you seek, you can continue on, then go ahead and go get you an LLC.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Well, guys, we're running over time here for a minute. Any additional questions you have, send them to my email, j@garciamhu.com. Until next time, next Sunday, Tuesday, we'll see you then. Thank you for joining.